So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Genshin Impact. So let's start the series. Naruto covered his left eye with his hand and mumbled. Okay, traveling between dimensions is not fun, let's not try to do that again. It seems that rupturing a space-time gap between dimensions has a significant negative impact on his Rinnegan. Who would have guessed? Naruto asked himself. Now where could I be? After his eye stabilized again after some time due to his extensive training in controlling and refining it, he looks around and sees that he is standing in what seems to be an endless stone path surrounded by similar stone pillar-like structures. Now this is a weird place. Wonder if this path leads anywhere. Naruto said aloud as he continued to walk down the path for what felt like hours without finding an end. The only thing that seemed different was that the pillars had moved, and the sun had gone from the top of the sky to hardly visible at all, which only made Naruto's frustration worse. AGHH. Is there a fucking end to this path, or have I just gone in circles this whole time? Naruto cried out in exasperation as he walked through the night until the sun rose once more. Okay, breathe in, breathe out, calm down. Naruto, getting angry is not gonna take you anywhere, he said, taking deep breaths and slapping his face. He finally decided to start moving faster after calming down because he had had enough of not getting anywhere for the entire day and night. Oddly, he wasn't getting hungry, thirsty, or even sleepy, but he did notice that, so he flexed his remaining power to be able to go at his fastest. Play, Encounter with the Unknown God, Genshin Impact OST. Swish. Naruto was ready to run at full speed when he looked up in time to see a slash cut through the air, opening into 3 red diamond-shaped apertures in the sky. Gazing curiously, Naruto sees a figure emerge, stepping in midair and revealing the largest shape in the center. The now female figure remarked, "It seems like this world has turned into a hub for outlanders. In any case, I will destroy you just as I did the other two, because I am the sustainer of heavenly principles," the unidentified female replied. After listening to the figure, Naruto simply stood there looking interested. "Hello, lady, do you happen to know the exit of this place? Since I'm kind of lost here, he said, rubbing his head sheepishly. Is there someone else with powers like the Rinnegan to be able to travel through space? He asked himself. There shall be no exit for you, human, for this is the time you die, the godlike figure remarked, squinting her eyes at the blonde while making what looks like a cube on her palm. He ducked at the last second as the ground he was standing on went red and sprang up in the shape of a cube. As soon as she did that, instincts took over and told him to jump to the side. After a battle, one learns to trust one's instincts. "Look, lady! I don't want to fight you," Naruto said as he kept dodging, but the deity didn't appear to hear him and just kept attacking. When an attack was going to hit Naruto, it was halted right in front of his head and sent back towards the god. Naruto scowled at her with his wounded Rinnegan and yelled, "Alright, that's it. You want to fight? Well, you got one," as he flipped through the air using Shinra Tensei, Almighty Push. After a moment of regaining her composure, the god actually stepped back in surprise and mild fear. "That kind of power is not something a human should have. What are you? And where did you come from?" she said, her eyes narrowing. "Where I come from is none of your concern. As for what I am, I always was and always going to be just a normal human, nothing more, nothing less," Naruto replied. The god with the unreadable face said, "So you won't answer me? Well then, I shall end you before you can unleash all of your power." "Shit, I still haven't fully recovered from crossing to this dimension. I need to think of something fast or else I'm done for," Naruto thought, holding his head slightly in pain. While prepared to launch her strike, the god began to amass a significant amount of strength in her hands. "Begone, Outlander, you don't belong in this world!" she exclaimed. "This is going to be a big mistake if it doesn't work," Naruto thought, placing his hands in front of him as if to grab the approaching blow. "That kind of power is too dangerous in the hands of a human," the deity stated, wearing an emotionless mask as she watched the attack strike her target's hands. She turned to walk, but was startled when she heard a laugh emanating from the smokescreen created by her attack. As the smoke cleared and she could see the man grinning, she heard him say, "Ha ha ha ha, that actually worked!" His hands were steaming from where her strike had struck, but he was unscathed. "How is it possible? That attack was enough to kill a god?" she asked. "Wait, he seems less tired than before. Did he absorb my attack?" she pondered, still in shock. "However, that isn't possible," she mentally yelled. After absorbing the attack, Naruto felt somewhat better than before, but he was still far from completely rested because it took him a lot of effort to absorb the attack because it wasn't chakra but rather a different type of energy. "I'm so glad that worked. Being hit by that attack would have done considerable damage to me in my weakened state," Naruto thought after the Rinnegan's absorption ability wore down. Kududama, truth-seeking orbs, screamed at Naruto as 9 gloomy orbs appeared in midair. "Time to make my escape," Naruto thought as he gazed at the still-shocked god, seizing the chance to go. She began hitting again, seemingly waking the god from her daze, but the 9 black orbs just blended into a black wall, shattering any strike that came into contact with it. The god was once again taken aback because her attacks were meant to be unstoppable, but she persisted. As the orbs united, they split up into 9 distinct ones once more, enabling her to witness Naruto seizing a tear in the air with his hands, tearing it apart even more, and passing through it while giving her a final look with his bleeding purple eye. As she moved back to her portal, she let her thoughts wander about the alleged human she had just met while she waited there watching the rip heal itself. "This is not over, Outlander. I shall bestow judgment upon you sooner or later. We shall meet again," she said, her voice fading across the room. End Genshin OST. Change of scene. Naruto moaned. "Damn, and here I said I'll never do that again." After emerging from his portal, which was made much more agonizing by the forced opening he made to escape more quickly. Looking around, Naruto saw that he was lying down on comfortable green grass in what appeared to be a very high cliff based on the direction of the wind. Thinking, might as well get some rest, he absorbed the Gududama, made a clone using one of the jutsus he had received from Jiraiya, the Totan Jutsu, transparent escape, and turned invisible to alert the original of any impending danger. After 18 hours, although Naruto's body ached in some places when he woke up, the sleep he had just had was likely one of the best he'd had in a long time. He dispelled his clone to retrieve the memory, and he thought to himself, "Well, I guess I was pretty tired," as he rarely needed more than 5 hours to feel completely rested. He exclaimed, "Now let's see what this world has to offer." As he began to descend the cliff he was on, he encountered a strange creature, quite short, wearing a white mask with red lines that strangely reminded him of some of the ANBU masks, and it was carrying a wooden shield with what looked like a makeshift wooden mace. "Hey there, do you happen to understand me?" Naruto asked, glancing at the creature, which only gave him a fleeting glance before charging at him with his mace poised to strike. "Whoa! I don't want to fight you." Naruto dodged the blow, but it seemed unfazed and continued to attack him. "What's with this place? Everyone I meet seems to want to fight to the death," he exclaimed as two more appeared, just like the one he was fighting. "Okay, fuck this. Katan, Hosenka no Jutsu, Fire Release, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique," said Naruto, shooting multiple tiny balls of fire before burning them in less than a second. Naruto thought to himself, "Damn, now I have to find someone who doesn't want to kill me at first sight," after the fire had subsided. "Well, you certainly are interesting," he said, turning right at the voice's owner, who was sitting on a tree. "You definitely have unique powers I have never seen before, so I wonder where you came from," the voice continued, and Naruto simply continued to stare at the boy or girl. They merely grinned at him. Naruto answered after a minute or so of checking to make sure he wasn't being attacked. "And you are? And you are?" Naruto inquired warily. When the now-known Venti said, Where are my manners? My name is Venti, and I'm nothing but a wandering bard," Venti cheekily asked. "Now may I have the name of the person before me?" "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I am just a lost traveler," Naruto replied with a slight smile, but he never relaxed around the bard in front of him. "You seem to use pyro to kill those hilichurls, even though you don't seem to have a vision. How is that possible if you don't mind me asking?" the bard asked with an inquisitive tone. "Pyro! Vision! I have no idea what you're talking about. I simply used a low-level fire release technique to dispose of them. I didn't think it would incinerate them that easily," replied a confused-looking Naruto. Venti pondered aloud. "Fire release, you say? Well, Traveler Dash, please just call me Naruto. Naruto, I have a proposition for you," said a smiling Venti. Naruto simply stared at him, thinking, I got nothing to lose. If anything, I can fight my way out." To which he replied, "All right, Venti, let's hear this proposition of yours." A now serious Venti said, "Very well. All I ask of you is to help me save my friend, and in return I'll tell you all I can about this world, deal?" Naruto appeared to be thinking deeply before responding. "Let's say I accept this offer of yours. I would need to know what happened to this friend, and who he is. In order to do that I would need to go quite down the memory lane," Venti said with an almost melancholy smile. If Naruto had to describe the bard's reaction to his response, he would say that his face blossomed with excitement. This made Naruto curious because, although he spoke like someone who had lived for a long time, the bard didn't look a day older than 16. It all began when the Anemo Archon Barbados decided to free his country from the storm that the god of storms Decarabian had enclosed the capital of the nation within. Venti began his story with a glassy expression on his face. Naruto simply sat down by the tree and listened intently to what the bard had to say. While the god of storm thought he was a good ruler, the people of the nation didn't think the same. So Barbados rose and brought the people together in order to fight for the freedom of Mondstadt. As the fight continued and countless lives were lost in order to achieve victory, the people and Barbados emerged the victors. Barbados came to be known as the god of wind and freedom, while the new capital of Mondstadt was named the City of Freedom. Naruto was now deeply invested in this story, and who wouldn't be? Given how events transpired, this was quite a tale, so he simply sat there and listened till the bard was done. After that, Barbados decided that the people should have the freedom to govern themselves while he himself would not meddle in their affairs. The country once again fell under tyranny when one of the 4 ruling noble families took over. The people wanted freedom again, but this time they wanted it under the leadership of a woman named Vanessa and the Knights of Favonius. Once the war was over and the people were free from tyranny once more, 4 protectors were named the 4 winds that would protect the nation's freedom. They are also known as the Wolf of the North, Lion of the South, Falcon of the West, and Dragon of the East. Venti paused to catch his breath before continuing. The former god of blizzards, Andreas, was dubbed the Wolf of the North, while Dvalin, an elemental dragon of wind and Barbados's close friend, was named the Dragon of the East. While the Falcon of the West were regarded as the Knights of Favonius collectively, the leader of the Knights of Favonius, known as the Lion of the South, also known as the Lion Fawn Knight or the Dandelion Knight, was given that title. At this point, Naruto saw the bard's face contort with disgust and pondered what might have caused that. 500 years ago, a great calamity happened and the whole world was plunged into war, Venti said in a sour voice. Naruto grimaced at that because he knew how devastating that kind of war can be. Venti noticed the expression on Naruto's face, but he filed that for later. After that calamity, people started to forget about the four winds, and with the passage of time they get mentioned less and less until now hardly anyone knows of them. Venti concluded with a dejected expression. During the calamity Andreas lost his life, but he can still project his spirit in the form of wind and frost for anyone that wishes to pass his trial. As for Dvalin, he got greatly injured during his fight with an evil dragon named Durin. After that he fell into slumber for 500 years, until now that he's awakened again, but with thoughts that he was abandoned by his people, but most importantly his friend Barbados. So in a rage he attacked the City of Freedom, earning himself the name Storm Terror by the people who no longer remembered him. At last, Venti finished his narrative and expected Naruto to look at him. After what felt like hours, Naruto eventually said, "So Barbados, what do you think the real reason behind Valin's attacks is?" He stood there looking up at the sky, taking in the story and repeating it in his mind. "Please just call me Venti," Venti said, laughing, knowing that he would be recognized as Barbados. "As for your inquiry, Dvalin's blood became contaminated from the wounds he had during the struggle with Durin, and now he's being exploited by the Abyss Order." Abyss Order? What do they have to do with any of this, and who are they? Well, you see, the Abyss Order is formed from monsters who want to dethrone the gods and plunge the world into the abyss, inquired Naruto bewilderedly. You've already met them, after all, and those hilichurls you defeated were their most common foot soldiers. In the meantime, I suspect one or two Abyss mages to be the ones manipulating Dvalin, Venti said thoughtfully. How do these Abyss wizards stack up against the others then? They're the ones that control most of the foot soldiers, since they are also intelligent enough to construct plans, so they do the most tasks out of all of the Abyss Order. They fight based on one element they are aligned to, asked Naruto in a serious tone. Venti appeared to consider his response before responding. Interesting, huh? All right, Bar Venti. Naruto smiled and said, I'll help you save your friend. If you keep your end of the agreement, I might even tell you where I'm from. Venti appeared relieved because he had finally received assistance in saving his best friend and because he was curious about Naruto's past. After all, he had just revealed that he was a god, and he didn't even bat an eye. To put it plainly, you mean to tell me that you don't have a method to reach Dvalin, and yet you requested for my assistance? Well, first things first, we need to obtain the way for me to call Dvalin, replied a cheerful Venti. Nope, teehee, said Naruto in a deadpan tone, to which Venti laughed. What have I gotten myself into? So, what exactly do we need in order to be able to call Dvalin? Exclaimed Naruto aloud. Asked Naruto. Oh, that's easy. All we need to do is retrieve the holy lyre from the cathedral in Mondstadt, Venti remarked. The sky was turning a gorgeous orange as the sun was starting to sink over the horizon. And you expect them to just give you an artifact that sounds very precious to them? Incredulously, Naruto replied, Why, of course. I'll tell them who I really am if necessary, so they shouldn't have any trouble handing it to me. Naruto said, simply staring at the upbeat bard in awe. Venti stated, We should get going, we want to get there before the sun sets completely after all. As he headed toward the city. In which direction is the city, and how far away is it roughly? Sighing, Naruto asked Venti, who appeared perplexed but responded, I would say about 5 kilometers west and 300 meters south. Naruto nodded his head and placed his hand on Venti's shoulder. After focusing for roughly 5 seconds, he opened his eyes and vanished in a whirlpool of leaves and wind. Change of scene. A tiny tornado of leaves and wind formed at the bridge's entry leading into Mondstadt, then vanished, leaving 2 people in its place. Wow! It was similar to utilizing a teleport waypoint without really using one. After seeing Naruto do a Shunshin body flicker, Venti screamed. So, where is this cathedral we need to get to? I don't know what a teleport point or anything like that is. At the end of the city, since it is one of the biggest buildings after all, said Naruto, utterly disregarding Venti's inquiries over his Shunshin. Venti said, We should probably not go in through the gate so we can avoid questioning. As he simply used the wind to climb the wall. Naruto nodded in agreement, and then began to walk up the wall with his feet sticking to it. Venti was once again fascinated by the shinobi's abilities, but he held off on asking any questions for the time being. Moving quickly through the building rooftops, the two went undetected to the cathedral, where they just entered. Leave this to me, Venti remarked confidently, and Naruto simply nodded his head and gestured for him to continue. Hi, sister. Yes, Bard, how may I be of assistance to you? Venti called to the nearest nun he spotted. May I please borrow the holy lyre so that I can play it for my friend? Said the sister in a gentle tone. I can't allow that no matter the reason. The holy lyre is an important artifact played by Barbados himself. He said in a tone that bordered on shyness. So be it, people of Mondstadt, rejoice for your Archon the Anemo god has returned. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Barbados, the god of wind and freedom, she said proudly. Please see yourself out, was the sister's dead reply. But please do as I ask, or I shall call the Knights of Favonius. She interrupted him once more. With a distressed expression, Venti approached Naruto and said, How could she not trust me, the god they worship? Naruto simply gave him a look that said, I told you so. I'll deal with it, Naruto stated with a deep sigh. But how will you do it? Venti only gazed at him as if he were mad. I'll just ask her nicely, he said, approaching the sister. Just sit back and watch. He added, Are you not with that naive bard? Get out, I told you. The nun, now enraged, said, with his Rinnegan's Tomos idly spinning around the center ring. Naruto simply stared into her eyes for 10 or so seconds before her eyes became lifeless. Would it be possible for us to borrow the holy lyre? It would be incredibly helpful. Yes, of course, please wait here while I go get it for you, he responded in a suave voice. The nun moved away to retrieve the lyre, her eyes remaining lifeless. What? How? That doesn't even make sense, were some of Venti's current thoughts as he stood there in daze. See? Wasn't that fairly simple? But how? The blonde inquired. You didn't even speak to her. Naruto added, giving the stuttering deity a cheeky smile before slyly saying, "Trade secret." The nun took around 10 minutes to return with the lyre. She went up to Naruto and simply handed him the item without saying anything. "Thank you very much for your help," Naruto said, looking her in the eyes again before she fell asleep. "Well, we're done here, so let's go," Venti said, standing there for a while with his mind shut down. After ensuring the nun was okay, he followed the blonde out the door and into the city. "So, will you explain how you accomplished that to me?" asking Venti while they walked through the city. "Did what?" Venti practically yelled at him. "You understand what I'm talking about, don't act ignorant. As for how it's a particular ability of my," Naruto said in a normal voice. "Aha, I knew that I was something special," said Venti. "Jez, what gave you that idea?" "I'm just playing with you." After leaving the same way they entered, the two chose to walk back to the cliff rather than teleport so they could converse along the way. After all, it was preferable to call Dvalin at night rather than during the day when someone might see him. "So, how about you tell me about the world while we go there?" asked Naruto as they walked, placing his hands behind his head. "Sounds good to me," Venti said, then began to tell the story of Teyvat. Many gods coexisted more than 2,000 years ago, ruling over and protecting the mortals who lived under them. Unfortunately, that didn't continue either, and the start of the In this war all the gods fought each other over the territory to rule over. As the war was finally at its end, out of the countless gods that started, only 7 remained. These 7 were considered the strongest gods and people started to call them archons, Venti said in a dark tone, and Naruto simply listened because he was fascinated by this new world. The 7 that survived all represented different ideals and elements in conjunction with one another: the Anemo Archon Barbatos, god of wind and freedom, the Geo Archon Morix, the god of stone and contracts, the Electro Archon, the god of lightning and eternity, the Dendero Archon, the god of life and wisdom, the Hydro Archon, the god water and justice, the Pyro Archon, the god of fire and war, and the Cryo Archon, the god of ice, Venti said of the Archon system. After that, some people with strong wills and ideals were blessed with something called a vision, which gave them some control over the element corresponding to the Archon that gave it to them, Naruto said, his face showing recognition. "So that's what you meant when you asked me about a vision, and why you said pyro when I used fire," Naruto said. "Yeah, I still don't understand how you did that without a vision though. I use a form of energy called chakra. Everything that lives has it inside them. I was just trained to the point that I can harness it," Naruto replied. "So anyone who can learn to use this chakra energy can control fire? Even though this rule doesn't really apply to me anymore, my gives me an affinity to all of them along with their sub-elements." Venti listened impressedly. "Not all of them. Everyone's chakra has one of 5 affinities, and some even have 2. The affinities are fire, wind, lightning, earth, and water, and each has a weakness and a strength to one another. Is it just you who has an eye like yours, or can anyone else get one?" "Well, you see, not just anyone can obtain the eye, but also I'm not the only one that can have it. You could say it's something passed down through genes from parent to child, or they can get it like I did, by an eye transplant," Venti said, nodding in response to the response. "Yes and no," Venti said after that. "After all, that eye seemed really powerful." Venti simply smiled back and said, "Yes, I agree," as he began to play the holy lyre that Naruto had previously powered with his Rinnegan and some of Venti's energy. After some more conversation along the way, they finally reached the top of the cliff, where the moon was at its peak and the view was breathtaking. It's been a while since I talked to someone I can call a friend, but I think it's time to help Dvalin, said a smiling Naruto. Screech after circling them, he paused in front of them and spoke, and a massive dragon emerged from beneath the cliff. Bowling out the dragon. Why have you summoned me, Barbados? Barbados, why have you called me? Then why do I see sadness in your eyes, sadness that's yearning for this song? Dvalin questioned in a furious tone after bowling out the dragon. What has been done cannot be undone, he added. Naruto's Rinnegan saw something approaching Venti at that very moment. He jumped forward and shoved Venti aside, but the projectile struck the lyre he was holding. Don't listen to him, my dragon, he abandoned you already. What's to say he won't do it again? Naruto looked up to see a wired floating creature with what looked like frost coming from it. You've betrayed me? Brought me here for him to slay me? As the dragon turned to face Naruto, he roared. It's time for the dragon to serve a true mast asterisk splitch. No, Dvalin, that's not dash. ROARR as he removed a red, nearly blazing kunai from what he assumed was an abyss mage's chest, Naruto remarked. I think that's enough out of you. The knife had easily passed through the object's resistance due to the fire chakra he had infused it with. He observes as the creature slowly disintegrates into wind-borne particles and dies in anguish. ROARR Naruto turns just in time to see the dragon begin to attack the bard, saying, Wait, Dvalin! Venti yelled at the dragon. You abandoned me, Barbatos, and for what? I'm here to help you. I don't want to fight you. Are you doing this only to please these mealy humans? The dragon roared in fury, while turning away and going in the direction of the city. Wait, Dvalin! Frantically called Venti. Naruto grabbed Venti's arm and pulled him to his feet, saying, Venti, we have to go after him. He's heading towards the city. We can't allow that. Yes, but it would seem that the blood of Durin is still affecting him. The Abyss Mage probably made something as a conductor for the curse, most likely where his old wounds were inflicted, Venti said, gathering himself. I think I saw them. They were in the form of 2 black crystals on his back, so all we have to do is destroy them. Yes, but we must hurry. He'll reach the city in no time, Naruto remarked after recalling the strange-looking crystals on the dragon's back. All right, do you think you can keep up? Asked Naruto jokingly to lighten the mood. Please! When Venti saw what he was attempting to achieve, he smiled slightly and said, Try me. Kudurama, truth-seeking orbs, Naruto called out as the 9 orbs materialized behind him. Careful not to touch these, or you'll disintegrate, he said gravely. Venti simply nodded as one of the orbs turned flat and went under Naruto's feet, acting as a board for him to fly on. As soon as he sat off, Venti immediately pursued him with the winds he created, and after a minute he opened his eyes, which were now surrounded at the edges by an orange-colored mark, and his blue eye had turned yellow with a bar-like pupil, while his Rinnegan remained the same but had a bar-shaped center. He also observed that he now appeared more at ease and in tune with himself, and that even the wind he was controlling seemed to be drawn to him. Without waiting for him to ask the question, Naruto said, This is called Sage Mode. It allows me to draw in nature's power. That's an impressive ability to have, said Venti. They quickly caught up to Dvalin. Stand back and watch, or you'll get caught in the crossfire, said Naruto. A screech sounded through the air, and a few seconds later, the ball was fully formed, but the blonde didn't seem finished. After the jutsu reached its peak, he raised his right hand above his head and said Senpo, Futon, Raisin Shuriken, Sage Art, Wind Release, Spiraling Shuriken. Vendi was stunned because he had never seen wind controlled like that, and he doubted that he himself could do that, which is saying something. Stay focused, Venti, we aren't finished yet, Naruto told him, bringing him back to reality. Vendi watched as the spinning bladed ball approached the dragon, worried that the technique would hurt him too much, but at the last second, the ball went upwards and above the dragon, and then boom, the ball exploded, and a white dome made of what he could feel were millions of wind blades took its place. He watched in amazement as the dome expanded just enough to destroy the crystal on Dvalin's lower back, without touching the dragon. He yelled back. As the crystal was destroyed, Dvalin screamed in agony but continued to soar toward the city at an even greater rate. Shit, he swore aloud. Venti! After saying, I'm going to go faster, keep up. Venti found it more difficult to keep up, but he managed to do so. By the time they caught up again, the dragon had nearly reached the lake that encircled the city. I apologize in advance for this, Dvalin, but I can't let you reach the city, Naruto said to himself. Despite what Vendi heard, he had faith that his new friend would not kill Dvalin, but would simply prevent him from getting to the city. Vendi was watching Naruto when he abruptly vanished, leaving behind the knife he had just thrown. He looked to the center of the lake and saw Naruto floating above it while his eyes were fixed on the approaching speeding dragon. Naruto pulled out a kunai, infused it with wind and lightning chakra, and threw it as hard as he could. The kunai passed the dragon and passed right in the middle of the lake. Throughout all of that, Naruto never took his eyes off the kunai. With his hands by his sides, Naruto stood patiently waiting as the dragon closed in, roaring toward him once more, ready to send him crashing to the ground. Naruto raised his hands and shouted, Shinra Tensei, Almighty Push, and as he did, an invisible force shot out of his body, slamming into the dragon and sending it crashing into the lake with such force that the ground around the water split and tremors formed. As Vendi stood there, hands now back down, watching the black orbs he had created earlier vanish as he looked at the water the dragon had crashed into, waiting for it to get up, he was in utter shock at the power displayed by the blonde. At this point he was certain that the blonde was not a mortal but something even higher than the gods themselves. 10 minutes prior, night of Favonius headquarters inside the office, 3 people seemed to be discussing something. They were Kia, the cavalry captain of the Knights of Favonius, Lisa, the librarian of the Knights HQ, and Jean, the dandelion knight, also acting Grand Master of the Knights. You're telling me that someone stole the Holy Lyre by brainwashing a nun and making her forget everything that happened, and these thieves were never seen entering or leaving the city? Asked Jean in a tired voice. That's about it, yes. I've never seen a crime done better than this. Coming in, stealing an important artifact of Mondstadt and getting out without leaving a single clue, and all this done while the sun was still out, replied Kia with an impressed voice. Maybe it was an inside job. After all, that's the most reasonable conclusion we have so far, added Lisa with a serious voice. I highly doubt that. No one in Mondstadt has any use for the Holy Lyre, and if they tried to sell it in the black market, my contacts would inform me immediately, countered Kia after thinking for a bit. It's just that all these problems just pop out of nowhere. First, we have to deal with storm terror attacking the city and other nearby settlements, then the factory starts pressuring us about it, and now we have to deal with a professional thief that we know nothing about and left behind nothing that can lead us to him, said Jean as she sank into her chair. I just don't know where to begin solving all these problems. Relax, Jean. Overthinking and tiring ourselves out is not going to solve any of our problems, said Lisa as she was supporting her companion. Following that, the 3 of them remained silent as they considered the circumstances until Kia had an idea, saying, I have an idea that could work. We can boom crash. The loud noise and the largest tremor he had ever experienced stopped him cold. When the tremor subsided, Jean slowly stood up while holding her head and inquired, "What was that?" After getting his bearings, Kia responded, "I have no idea, but whatever did cause it could not be good." As he was saying that, the door flew open and a knight ran in panting. He glanced around the office before yelling, "Captain, Acting Grand Master, someone is fighting with Storm Terror right over Cider Lake, and he just sent the dragon flying down in the lake. That's what caused the tremors, Kia. We don't know if this fighter is on our side or not, so we can't just turn our backs," Jean said, getting up to head toward the area of the conflict. "Get all vision holders to the city entrance." Returning to the pair as he stood there, Naruto's gaze turned to the city. He sensed that at least 8 individuals with a certain energy had gathered at the city's gates. Naruto drifted in Venti's direction and said, "Venti, we've caught the people's notice. What should we do?" Venti put his hands together and said to his friend, "Leave it to me." Suddenly, the wind began to pick up and formed a dome-like shape around the area where they were fighting. "They're done," he said, adding, "Should stop them from interfering," as Venti finished the water before Valen shot up and out. "Good, just in time too," Naruto said. Valen roared and turned his gaze to look at Naruto. "You will pay for that," he said angrily and opened his mouth to gather energy while aiming it at Naruto. "Venti, brace yourself," warned Naruto as the blast from the dragons started heading towards them. When the attack got to the halfway point, Naruto bit his finger and shouted, "Kuchios! Sunju Rashomon! Summoning! Triple Rashomon!" In less than a second, 3 giant gates with demonic faces appeared in the attack's path, with the first gate taking it head-on. Boom! After the explosion from the attack hitting 2 gates died down from the 3 gates, the first one was almost fully destroyed, the second gate was cracked all over and bent, while the last one was just a little dented. "Damn, that did quite some damage," said an unharmed Naruto, impressed that the attack managed to reach the 3rd gate. "Of course it did, that was Valen's strongest attack. I'm surprised that these gates you created can even stand," said an astonished Venti, who at this point just stopped wondering how strong the blonde was. Naruto just chuckled at that and turned his attention back to the dragon, who was one more ready for battle. In the meantime, Jean and the others, when Kia saw Naruto glancing at them, she said, "It seems he saw us. What are they planning?" As the bard put his hands together, Eula, the captain of the reconnaissance company, asked Dialek, a noble of Monsat, owner of the Dawn Winery, and a pyro vision holder. "Seems we'll find out soon enough," she said. "Everyone stand back," Jean yelled as she saw a barrier form around the fight site. "This is a wind barrier. It's almost as if Barbados himself made it," said Barbara, Jean's younger sister and a nun. "Well, it seems like the fighting is about to continue," said Kia, observing the water shoot up. "I wonder how they're going to survive that attack. It's the most powerful attack I've ever seen," said Albedo, the chief alchemist of the Knights of Favonius. As he was finishing his statement, 3 enormous gates suddenly materialized before the attack and stopped it with a loud explosion. When the dust had settled, the people who had gathered saw the 3 gates still standing and the 2 people behind them unharmed. "Those 2 are definitely not normal by any means. Having the power to stop that kind of attack is definitely not something a lot of people can obtain," Dialek said. His eyes narrowed, and everyone else agreed. Reunited with the paired, Valen lunged forward to try to swallow them whole, but they jumped away from the attack, Venti to the side and Naruto up. "Venti, when I give a signal, I need you to keep him still for a minute or this will seriously hurt him, Naruto told Venti. Venti simply nodded and prepared to complete his task, even if it meant using all of his strength to do so. Once Naruto had his footing in the air and was ready for his final attack, he said, "Now!" When Naruto gathered the necessary focus and chakra, he opened his eye and said, "Amaterasu." The spot where he was looking, which was the crystal left on Valen's back, ignited into black flames, burning away as if it were paper. Now, Venti was struggling even more to hold the dragon down, but he didn't give up, especially after he saw what was happening to the crystal. Shouting Naruto, Venti brought his hands down with all his might, and with it, a strong pressure of wind pushed Valen down into the earth, preventing him from getting up. After the crystal had burned away, Naruto closed his left eye, causing the flames to go out. The dragon appeared to regain himself after a while, but this time he appeared rather composed. "Barbatos? What took place here? How did I end up?" "Damned Valen, get us out of here. I'll tell you what happened later," asked the dragon. "Don't worry, my friend. I'll explain everything once you've healed up," said Venti in a cheerful tone. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need to get out of here. The barrier you put up broke when you held Valen down," said Naruto as he was cleaning the blood from his eye. Venti glanced at the edge of the clearing and saw the people beginning to approach them. "Very well, hop on, I shall take us to my lair," said Valen as he began to fly away when they got on. At the city's entrance, "The one that's flying seems to be preparing his last attack," Jean remarked, astonished to see someone able to simply soar like that. "That black fire! That seems like they're trying to end this fight," Dialect commented, observing the bard use wind to bring the dragon down after they avoided its onslaught. When the blonde started the fire, Dialect was shocked and exclaimed, "My vision is reacting as if urging me to stay away from it." "Same here. I can understand why. After all, it's burning that crystal as if it is nothing but paper," said Lisa, who was quite alarmed because she could tell the fire had a great deal of energy. "Guys, the barrier's down. Probably the bard could not hold the barrier and the dragon at the same time," noted Kia. Amber, the outrider of the Knights of Favonius, added. When Jean saw the dragon and the bard talking, she said, "Let's go. It seems the fighting is over." "Looks like they don't want to be acquainted with us," Kia said, glancing at them as the two got on the dragon and took off. ****, at least that seems to solve our storm terror problem for now, which also fixes the factory one. Now I can focus more on the holy liar thief," said a mentally exhausted Jean. "I think that those two might be connected with the holy liar theft. After all, they can just fly in and out the city unnoticed," she said, turning and heading towards the city. One of the highest-ranking soldiers in the Abyss Order, an Abyss Herald, was seen standing on a cliff overlooking Storm Terror's lair, watching as the dragon flew past with two people in its back. He narrowed his eyes at that point and turned his head slightly to look behind him. The figure was dressed in all black and a little blue to represent his element, and it seemed to have no face, or at least one covered by his clothing. "Your Highness, I come bearing good and bad news," he said in a deep, raspy voice, bowing to the shorter person in front of him. "I could have guessed, so what is the news you bring that requires you to deliver them?" asked the person in a female voice. "Your Highness, your plan to use the dragon was compromised by the Anemo Archon?" "No, we were prepared for his interference. It was someone of a way higher power than the Anemo Archon, I see," the girl said after a moment of silence. "And what of the other news?" Your brother has finally woken from his slumber and wishes to see you, the still kneeling figure said. Then what are you still doing here? Take me to him immediately, she said urgently. As you command. He opened a portal, and they passed through it. We're going to be reunited, Ether, were the girl's thoughts when she was walking, after 20 minutes, inside the lair. And then you finally woke up. Venti concluded by telling Valen everything that had transpired since he had woken up, including how he had met Naruto and their altercation. I see, thank you Barbatos and thank you Naruto Uzumaki. It seems that I owe my life to both of you, Valen said, bowing his head in gratitude. Meh, think nothing of it, my friend. After all, Venti here helped me understand quite a lot about this world, so for that I'm grateful, said Naruto, grinning. That be it, but I still want to apologize for the trouble I have caused you, Valen said with regard for the blonde. When Venti asked, Naruto, do you think it would be possible for us to return a fake holy lyre to the cathedral? I could have done it if I had the original broken one and made it appear fine, but that's probably lost by now. Naruto paused before responding. Yes, I think I can do something about that. I just need to find something of similar shape and weight. Does my normal lyre get the job done? Venti asked, passing him his instrument. Yes, this will do perfectly, Naruto said, grabbing the lyre. Naruto pulled his sleeve back to reveal a tattoo on his forearm. He then pushed some chakra into it, causing a brush and a pot of ink to emerge. This confused Valen, who looked to Venti for clarification, but he simply shrugged his shoulders and said, After wetting the brush, Naruto started to write wired symbols all over the lyre. After about 5 minutes, he was finally done, and he put his brush and ink back into the seal and started to inspect his work. When he was finished checking for errors, he put it down. Going through 5 hand seals, he pointed his index and middle finger at the object while saying Fuin, seal. Suddenly, the ordinary lyre began to change and take on the shape of the holy lyre. After the transformation was complete, Venti took the now holy lyre and examined it. He was astounded, and even he was unable to distinguish it from the real one. How did you do this? If I hadn't witnessed you do it, I would have assumed this is the original one, Venti said. That, my friend, is the wonderful work of seals, one for creating an illusion, one for solidifying said illusion, and a final one to gather nature energy so the illusion never fades. Venti simply nodded without saying anything. Well, let's go back to the cathedral then, Naruto said, placing his hand on Venti's shoulder and turning to Valen. We'll be back in less than 10 minutes. Valen simply nodded, and the two vanished in a swirling vortex. The statue of Barbatos and Mondstadt Venti turned to Naruto, looking excited, and said, That was different, right? It wasn't like the last time you used it? You're right, this time we went through a pocket dimension, while last time we just traveled really fast, he said as he leaped down from the statue, Venti trailing closely behind. A swirl appeared in the air on top of the statue, spewing out to people. Hello, sister. While we were traveling towards the city, we came upon a lyre that seemed to radiate elemental energy which was felt by my friend with a vision here, Naruto said, lying through his teeth and not even showing remorse, as Venti walked forward and handed the fake lyre to the nun. When the nun saw what they were talking about, her eyes widened, and she took it right away and went to put it in its place. By this time, the sun had risen again, making it nearly noon. After about 10 minutes, the nun returned to the main hall and walked up to them. I can't thank you enough for bringing back the stolen holy lyre. Please tell me if there is anything me or the cathedral can do for you, she said, bowing in gratitude to the two of them. No, no, please, we want nothing in return. It was the right thing to do after all, Naruto said shyly, gesturing for the sister to stand up. May Lord Barbatos bless you for returning one of the most precious artifacts of the god of Anemo. May the wind lead you to greatness, the sister prayed. Naruto was laughing hard inside as he glanced at Venti, who was just standing there awkwardly. Thank you, sister, we shall now take our leave, Naruto said, having completed the task for which he had come. As they were leaving, Naruto smiled mischievously and turned to face Venti. So, Lord Barbatos, where is my blessing and the wind which will lead me to greatness? Naruto chuckled as Venti got a tick mark on his forehead. I'll show you a blessing, Venti whispered as they left. However, as soon as they were outside, Naruto was on guard, leaving 5 presences nearby. 5 seconds later, 2 puddles formed behind Venti, and 2 people emerged from them. A voice said, At last, Mondstadt's rodent ruler in the flesh, from the direction of the icy wave. Naruto and Venti turned to face the owner of the voice and saw a young, tall woman with long, blonde, nearly white hair, wearing a red cape and a white and black short dress, along with a headpiece that almost looked like a crown that covered her right eye and a portion of her face. Naruto reacted quickly, drawing out a kunai and thrusting it into the attacker's neck, killing him instantly. Sadly, the other attacker escaped with only a minor scrape on his neck. Mondstadt calls this a god? Resident rodent beats invasive vermin dash. Venti couldn't finish as she slapped him in the face. Don't you dare speak back to me, insolent bard, Signora said as Venti began to gather his strength. This woman is known as La Signora, the fair lady number 8 of the Fatui Harbingers, a group of 11 who are known to fight in the name of the Cryo-Archons. As all of this was happening, Naruto swiftly merged with the shadows and moved behind the assassin who had escaped earlier. He then swiftly returned and plunged the kunai into his skull, leaving only the handle protruding. The 2 purple-clad mages noticed this and got ready for battle, so Naruto saw them form an electricity shield around them and perform 9 quick hand signs. He then grabbed his right wrist, and lightning began to form around it with a distinctive sound coming from it, as if 1,000 birds were chirping simultaneously. Naruto raised his hand and looked at his enemies while uttered Raikiri, lightning cutter. The blonde just stared at her before raising his lightning-covered hand and uttering the words Raiden, Reijutsuga, lightning release, lightning hound. The lightning in his hand took the shape of a hound, which lunged towards the escaping mage, capturing her and electrocuting her to death. Naruto simply pulled his hand back, causing the deathless corpse of his target to fall to the ground with a fist-sized hole in her chest. Venti was about to use his power to break the ice that had trapped him when he and Signora felt the 2 mages and turned to see what had happened. Signora was now furious because the blonde man who had killed one of her assassins had just killed her second one as well. She kept watching, thinking that her other 2 subordinates would be able to kill him now that he had lost his element of surprise. How wrong she was, though, because she saw the blonde go through some strange signs with his hands and his hand was encased in lightning, but she was unable to see a vision anywhere. She watched in silent shock as his lightning-covered hand passed through her subordinate's defense and into her heart, instantly killing her. However, he wasn't finished. As he did so, he spoke, and the lightning in his hand transformed into a hound, pursuing the other mage and electrocuting her as well. Venti was also shocked as he stood there, knowing that his new friend had no trouble killing, but it was a little unsettling that someone was so proficient at it. He was so absorbed in his thoughts that he didn't notice Signora leaping at him, but Naruto did. In a flash of lightning, Naruto was by Venti's side, his hand on his shoulder. Signora saw him come, but she didn't mind, trying to get things done as quickly as possible so she wouldn't have to fight him. I can't afford to fight him, he'll kill me easier than I could beat a child, she thought as her hand reached Venti's chest, where his gnosis was. She grinned, thinking she had accomplished her goal, but the smile soon faded to a frown of fear as her hand and entire body passed through the two people in front of her, as if they were ghosts. Venti saw what Signora was pursuing, but he was unable to stop it, so it was too late. He looked at Naruto and saw the dots in his eye spin, assuming that he was the one who did it, saving his power and divinity. Venti, we're out of here. I can feel hundreds of knights coming, he replied. Naruto nodded, and a familiar tear formed behind him, quickly growing enough to fit two people. When the portal was large enough, he leaped into it, Venti trailing behind him. Signora was startled, angry, and terrified as she waited there until she heard footsteps approaching. Knowing that the knights would arrive at any moment, she hurried away, shouting, "Barbatos!" She thought of him, and the entire struggle replayed in her head. How can someone control such power? She thought. I will not forget this. I will make you pay even if it is the last thing I do, along with that blonde bastard. She asked herself incredulously. I have to postpone my trip to Inazuma so I can warn Her Majesty. And turned to head to her boat so she could return to Snezhnaya. It dwarfs that of the gods, dare I say even more powerful than Her Majesty herself. Nearly 2 months had passed since Naruto arrived on this planet, and he had grown to enjoy the tranquility there, the lack of need to go out and fight, and the freedom to follow orders for missions. During the 2 months he had been traveling with Venti on his traveling performances, Venti quickly became Naruto's friend, sharing with him his background, upbringing, and the war he had ended before arriving here. So, what are you planning to do once we leave once more? Venti asked his friend. After all, he himself had gone through 3 different wars. So, what are you planning to do once we leave once more? Venti said. Well, I'll probably visit the US since I overheard some people talking that the rite of dissension is in about a month. Naruto replied. Yamorik still does that. I guess that's his way of showing his people that he's still among them. After all, a visit from the god of contracts in the city with the most exports is a sign of his blessing. As they entered the ruins of the old castle of the god of storms, Naruto added. To be fair, I'm more interested in those adepti you've told me about. By the way you describe them, they sound like some form of demigods. Barbatos, Naruto, it's good to see you again, he said in greeting. It's good to see you too, Dvalin, Naruto said. But I'm afraid there is no time for pleasantries. I can feel the leftover power of Durin growing by the minute, he said gravely. That's not good. We can't let his power grow and fall into the fatuous or the abyss order's hand. Venti scowled at that before responding. Well then, Venti, as thanks for helping me learn about this world, I will help you get to the end of this. Naruto smiled. Thank you, Naruto. Now, let's go to Dragon's Pine and find out what's causing the increase in power. I'm afraid I can't go with you there. I don't want to take the risk of getting cursed with that power again, Valance said, glancing at Venti. Don't worry, old friend, you don't have to, especially since I'm not alone, Valance said, replaying Venti. So Venti, you up for a race to the mountain? No teleporting there, of course. Venti smiled back. If you think that my only way of traveling is teleportation, then you're sorely mistaken, he said. Then, both of them vanished in blurs as they headed towards the frozen mountain Dragon's Pine, which is known to some as the location of Durant's corpse. The two of them arrived at the river that surrounded the mountain in about 30 minutes, with Naruto arriving 1 minute ahead of Venti, who arrived with a pout on his face. Now where do we start looking? I can feel a lot of different groups fighting each other at the same time, said Naruto, as he stood there contemplating what he had said. We should probably start with the mountain's core where most of Dvalin's remains and power are, Venti said, nodding, and they began their journey there. They arrived quickly, but when they reached the core, they found something they hadn't anticipated, at least not at the core. The core resembled a huge red and black tumor, and a person appeared to be standing in front of it, seemingly studying it. Naruto and Venti instantly prepared to battle the stranger. Albedo, the chief alchemist of the Knights of Favonius, turned to face them and said, He was of average height, had blonde shoulder-length messy hair and a braid on his left side, blue eyes with an empathetic face, and a strange mark on his neck that looked like a star. Of course, he remembered them, as did everyone else who saw them. They were the ones who fought Dvalin over Cider Lake nearly 2 months ago and vanished without a trace. Aren't you two the ones that freed Dvalin from his curse? What are you doing here? Asked Albedo emotionlessly. That we are. But you on the other hand feel familiar and unfamiliar at the same time, and even standing before me I can hardly get a feel of your chakra, said Naruto in a suspicious voice. Chakra? Is that some kind of energy I'm supposed to have but don't? Or do I have it, but just in small amounts? Albedo, who was already formulating theories, said. I see, so you're the genius alchemist I've heard about. It's surprising how close you are with your theories, as chakra is actually a type of energy that everyone has, and by the extremely small amount that I'm sensing from you I would guess you're probably not completely human, or even an artificial life form even. Naruto concluded. The same could be said for you. You are actually quite right in your deductions since I am a homunculus created from the bases of alchemy. Albedo responded, surprised because he doesn't often encounter someone who can figure that out on his own. So you're Alice's son that she talked about. Didn't expect to meet you in this place though, Venti acknowledged. So do I assume that you're Barbatos then, since you seem to know my creator and had the power and reason to help Dvalin? Meanwhile your friend here is probably from another world given his power and sudden appearance, Albedo concluded. You would be correct both times, but please just call me Venti, replied Venti with a grin. Now let's talk about more pressing matters, the first being the reason that you're at the core of Dragon's Pine, which you're probably aware houses the remaining power of Durin, said a serious Naruto. I came here to study the abnormal energy that was coming out of a sword the knights had in possession. I suspect it was power from Durin's curse since every time I killed a monster the sword seemed to get stronger, and I'm guessing that you're both here for the same reason. So the power had a catalyst in order to manifest itself, settled Venti. All right then, let's have a look at this sword, shall we? Said Naruto. Yes, of course, I left it with my assistant back at my camp. Let's go, I'll take you there. The camp is on the side of a cliff. Wait, your assistant is no longer at the camp. I can't sense anyone on the side of the mountain, said Naruto as he signaled them to stop. Really? She shouldn't have a reason to leave. Well, does she perhaps have an anemo vision? Asked Naruto, to which Albedo responded. Yes, she does. Can you perhaps tell what kind of vision someone has based on their energy? I do. In fact, the only chakra I feel from you is the little bit that your vision has. But that's not important right now. It seems your assistant is in a 3-way fight against 2 groups, one with 10 non-vision wielders and the other group being 4 what feels like visions. But these visions seem to be eating away at their life force. replied Naruto. And if I had to guess, the fight is probably over the point of corrupted energy I feel in the middle of them, which I would guess is our Duran power catalyst. Naruto concluded. Based on their descriptions, I can guess that she's fighting against treasure hoarders as the non-vision fighter, with the other group being Fatui, using delusions, a bastardized version of visions that anyone can use. Albedo concluded. It seems Tsuritsa is collecting objects that belong to or are related to the Archons, and Duran's power is definitely something she would want. Venti added. Well, let's go help her then, Naruto said, placing his hand on Venti's and Albio's shoulder before vanishing in whirls of flame. Using her vision to keep the two fighting parties apart, Sucrose tried to stay as far away as she could over the frozen plain where the fighting was taking place. This is not what I wanted to do when I came here to help that adventurer, she thought frantically as she dodged a stray arrow. Suddenly, a flame appeared next to her and quickly went out, leaving 3 people in its place. She was terrified until she saw her mentor emerge from the flame with 2 other people. Sucrose, are you okay? Albedo asked her. Well, I didn't really participate in the fight, so I didn't get injured, she said shyly. Sorry to interrupt you, love birds dash. Sucrose blushed at that, and Albedo simply looked to the side. But I think if you don't like fights or killing to look away, he warned Naruto before turning to Venti. Give me wind. Venti simply nodded, understanding what he meant. Naruto put his hands forward, his fingers crossed, only his pointer fingers up, put his hand in front of his mouth, took a deep breath, and said, When Katon, Gokamekyaku, fire release, great fire annihilation, released a massive wave of orange, nearly white flames toward the 2 fighting groups. Venti, witnessing his friend's attack, also launched a powerful windstorm that combined with the fire and only served to intensify it. That was the last thing the fighting parties saw before they were all destroyed as soon as the fire attack was finished. Nothing was left behind after it was finished, not even ashes. Sucrose turned away as soon as Naruto warned him, but Albedo chose not to. He was unable to begin explaining what he saw because, with the bard's wind added, the blonde's fire attack alone could likely destroy a small town. But if it were carried out inside the walls of Mondstadt, it would destroy the entire city, leaving only ashes in its wake. Unfortunately for them, the attack's blast knocked the sword to the ground fairly forcefully, which caused the energy it contained to flow to a nearby flower and into it. Normally, this wouldn't be an issue, but the sword also absorbed some of the power from Naruto and Venti's combined attack. Well, that turned out pretty well, didn't it? Asked a sardonic Naruto. I should stop this. I'm not going to risk another Shinju situation, he thought seriously. Everyone stands back. I'll deal with this, he said. The others simply nodded as he charged forward at the still-forming flower through hand seals. When he got close, both of his fists began to glow as he said Bakutan, Jiraken, explosion release, landmine fist, thrusting his hands forward. As Naruto walked back, they all just stared at him. What? He asked, bewildered. You know what? I'm not gonna even ask, sighed Venti. Then, the problem was solved, and Naruto and Venti headed towards Mondstadt with disguises for drinks after making sure to tell Albedo to keep quiet about those events. A huge explosion swallowed the flower whole, and the other just stood there in awe of the power. Nearly 4 weeks had passed since the events on Dragon's Pine, and we found Naruto strolling down a road that led to the city of contracts. Venti had informed him that each country was very different from the others, in contrast to his own world, where each village had its own costumes but was largely similar in how they spent the majority of their lives. Naruto remarked to himself, I wonder what this Morix guy is like. From what Venti said, he should be filthy rich considering he basically created money. Adding, that seems like a nice place to get some rest, as he observed a massive inn perched atop a large tree. I still don't understand how you can just go out and find these chests that have money and other valuable stuff inside them with either no one or just some weak monsters guarding them. Naruto had been wondering this since he had discovered one while traveling with Venti, and Venti had explained that it was mostly the stuff that monsters collected or things that were stolen and put in there. But he didn't really care because it was his main source of income. Wanshu Inn, that sounds like a good place, he said as he made his way to one of the tables on the ground floor of the building. He waited until a waitress arrived. Good day, what can I get for you, sir? He asked the young woman politely and with a small smile. Thank you, can you recommend something for me? I have never been to Liyue before, so I'd like to try something special from here, Naruto said kindly. The waitress smiled and paused to consider her next move. If you like spicy food, I would recommend the stir-fried fillet, but if not, I would recommend the mora meat, a generally liked recipe. I'll go for the stir-fried fillet, please, Naruto ordered. And whatever the gentleman observing me wants, he added, sensing that someone had been watching him since he entered the area of the inn. A little while ago, Shao the Conqueror of Demons, the only Akasha left who were the Adeptus, had been tasked with eliminating evil spirits and beings from Liyue. He had been going about his day as usual, staying at the entrance to Liyue prepared for anything, or so he thought until he felt it. Someone entered the range of his senses, and he was strong, extremely strong, but that wasn't what worried him. Rather, it was the feel of this person. He was incredibly surprised when he came into view. He stood out and looked different, but no, he was almost normal if you couldn't feel his energy. Shao tensed when he heard him order for someone else, realizing that he was caught. I'll have almond tofu, Shao said in a dull tone. The waitress jumped when he said that, but she didn't see him there, so she just nodded and sent the orders to the kitchen so they could be ready. Who are you? Shao asked directly. It's a bit rude to ask someone their name without introducing yourself first, don't you think? Naruto replied nonchalantly. Very well, you can call me Shao. Now who are you? Well, nice to meet you, Shao. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. And would I be correct in assuming you were an Adeptus? Yes, you would. Seems like you can sense others' energy as well, seeing as you sensed me even when I hid my presence, Shao asked, eager to learn more about this being. Naruto asked, Now, Shao, mind telling me why you were watching me while trying to hide your presence? He stood up straighter, narrowed his eyes, and even let a hint of his intent to kill come out. Shao was almost scared when he saw the change in the blonde in front of him. It seemed like he had completely changed from the carefree person he had been before. His karma, he said. When compared to him, I look like a child. How can he control himself like that? When Shao responded, the previous waitress brought them their orders. Ah, I see you're a sensor and a good one at that, being able to differentiate the type of energy my eye uses. As for your concerns, you shouldn't worry. I've been able to control my cursed power ever since I achieved inner peace and accepting the thoughts and emotions I buried a long time ago, she said, echoing Zhao's almost panicked thoughts. My duty is to protect Liyue from evil. You are extremely powerful even though you're hiding that fact. The main reason was that your energy seems tainted, but you have it in control. That should be impossible, she said. You should forgive yourself, Shao. Let go of the past, but never forget it. Don't be bound by it, instead learn from it, don't dwell on regrets, but think how you can prevent them from happening again. Do these things and the curse you carry won't control you anymore. Trust me, I know, he said, and when he was done, Shao watched him vanish into thin air as if he had never been there, leaving behind an empty plate and a stack of mora. Thank you, Shao whispered in the air as he vanished as well. 2 days later, the entrance to Liyue. So this is the city of contracts. It looks almost the same as the fire capital where the daimyo lived, Naruto said, observing the city's buildings and its crowded streets. I guess I'm just in time for the rite of Desenion, he said. Naruto then began to explore the city, enjoying himself while he discovered a lot about the history of Liyue and its god. He discovered that the name Morix is now considered an insult to him, as his people began referring to him as Rex Lapis out of respect. As a result, the only people who still use the name Morix are his enemies. He spent about an hour wandering around before heading up to the location of the ritual. There were many people waiting for Rex Lapis to make his predictions about the state of Liyue's economy, and he saw a woman in the middle of the stage supervising the preparation of offerings to the god. He assumed that this woman was the leader of the Liyue Qixing, a group of prosperous businessmen and women who controlled the city because, after all, it was the city of contracts and trades. So this is the Ningguang I've heard so much about. She seems as much like royalty as I've heard, he thought as Ningguang began the ceremony to welcome the god. Ningguang approached the body to examine it as the entire terrace trembled and people appeared bewildered and afraid. Rex Lapis has been killed, seal all the exits, she cried, and people began to panic as guards poured in, closing all the exits. As she did this, the sky turned dark with a gold tint and a vortex of clouds formed, but something appeared to emerge from it, a gold and brown dragon, or more accurately, a falling dragon corpse. Oh boy, why do I always get caught up in these things? Also, that corpse doesn't feel right. It's almost as if I see now. Well, better get out of here before they catch sight of me. With that said, Naruto quickly made his escape unnoticed, until the very last second when he knocked a pot of flowers down as he was hiding. Well shit, in less than a second he was surrounded by the soldiers. Look guys, you probably don't want to do this, he warned before he heard a voice behind him say, Hey you, stand back a little. Just as he heard that, a man with orange hair shot an arrow at one of the soldiers, hitting him in the shoulder. He moved quickly, using his vision to make what looked like water knives, even though they were dulled, so as to not kill the soldiers, and swiftly dispatched the others. Just as he was done, they heard more coming in from the terrace. Come with me, I know a place where we can talk uninterrupted, said the orange-haired man. Naruto just nodded as they jumped away, leaving the Millilith behind. When they reached what Naruto recognized as the northern bank, a bank from Snezhnaya, the man said, Here, now we can talk without eavesdroppers. Naruto simply stared at him for a moment before responding. Well, talk away then, straight to the point I see. All right then, do you perhaps know of a woman by the name of Signora? Naruto paused to consider the name before recalling Venti telling him the name of the person who had attacked him at the cathedral, and was pursuing his source of divinity, which he named Enosis. Yes, I do indeed know her, quite rude she was, he said in a relaxed voice, but he was now completely on guard, speculating who the man was. Excellent, then let me introduce myself. My name, or more like allies, is child number 11 of the Factory Harbingers. He introduced himself with a small bow. I assume you know of me since you asked that question earlier, said Naruto. Of course I do. All the factory know of the one who single-handedly killed 4 of Signora's best subordinates, and made her retreat without getting a single scratch on himself. The other harbingers made it quite clear for every factory outside of the harbingers to avoid you," said Child in a happy voice. "So, are you here to try and do what your friend couldn't?" asked Naruto, preparing to fight. Child put his hands up and quickly said, "No, no, no, that's not the case at all. Signora had her mission and failed. It has nothing to do with me." "Then why did you approach me?" asked a suspicious Naruto. "I know you're going to get framed for the death of Rex Lapis. The factory are trying to set up diplomatic relations with Liyue, so we can't afford them getting weaker as they try to capture you," answered Child. "And what makes you think that helping me escape is not going to make me wanted? It won't stop you from being a fugitive, but I know of a way for you to clear yourself. That's by going to the Adepti and informing them of Rex Lapis's passing," the Harbinger said. "There is no need for me to do that. There was something wrong with that corpse. It was as if the death was staged," said Naruto as he began to rethink his thoughts. "Can you confirm your suspicions?" Naruto turned to face Child before responding. "I can. I just need to see the corpse one more time so I can be 100% sure. That would be something of a problem right now. The Qixing is preventing anyone from seeing the Exuvia, let alone paying their respect for him." "Exuvia? What's that?" "Exuvia is called the corpse of a god." "So what now?" "I know someone who can help us get access to the Exuvia," Child asked. After a while, the two went to a restaurant where no guards were present. They entered a private booth where someone was waiting for them, and the man said in a deep voice, "Ah, I see you're here, Child." The man was dressed and behaved as one might expect from someone of a higher social standing, and Child used that opportunity to introduce the parties to one another. "Yes, hello, Mr. Zhongli. I have brought with me a friend I wanted to introduce you to," he said, a small smirk appearing on Naruto's face as he said, "It's nice to meet you. My name is Naruto Uzumaki." He looked at Zhongli's eyes for a moment with his Rinnegan, then extended his hand for a shake. Zhongli still had a passive expression on his face, but if one looked closely, one could see his raised eyebrow. He stood up and accepted the offered hand while saying, "The feeling is mutual. You see, Mr. Zhongli here is a consultant at a funeral parlor, but trust me when I say he is the most knowledgeable man I have ever met, so I'm pretty sure that he can help you find a way to the Exuvia," replied Child. "Yes, that can be done rather easily. In Liyue there is a tradition that when an Adepti dies a large send-off ceremony is held in their honor. Rex Lapis, while being the Geo Archon, is still an Adeptus, so we can organize a rite of parting in his name. That way we can get to see the Exuvia since it's needed so people can pay their respects," concluded Zhongli. "Then you can get right on it, don't worry, all the expenses will be covered by the factory," added a happy Child, seeing this as an opportunity to free the Gnosis from the Exuvia. After they left the restaurant, Child parted ways with them, saying he had a job to do, thus leaving Naruto and Zhongli alone to organize the event. As they were walking down the street looking for a specific ore of jade, Naruto started talking to the man beside him. "So Zhongli Zhongli turned his head to listen to him. "You do know that Child is after your Gnosis, which he thinks is still in your fake dead body," said Naruto. Zhongli stopped walking for a second before continuing as if it never happened. "So you were the power that entered this world 3 months ago, after you fought what I assume was a god that prevented your entry to this world," deduced Zhongli. Naruto looked at him for a moment before saying, "You know, I think Barbados underestimate your intelligence. A lot of things make sense now that I have met you. We have lots to talk about, so how about we go for some tea and exchange stories?" asked Zhongli. "That seems like a wonderful idea." With that said, they changed their destination to the nearest tea house.